Have you ever heard that when you meet the person you're meant to be with and you realize, what your deepest passions are and you want to earn a living doing what you love, have you ever heard people say it'll be a full body yes? I think this is the most misguided information that is out on social media. When you really meet the right person, when you align yourself or start to align yourself to what you're meant to be doing, often it terrifies most of us. Because we have this shadow that looms, it grips, it holds us down unconsciously in the background, but also deep in the body. I want you to understand the fear of commitment, the fear of really moving into a relationship that fulfills all of your needs, the fear of going after a life that you want to be living by complete design. It's going to scare you. And it's going to bring up all types of sensations and things in your body. Often the fear of commitment shadow, the closer we are to fulfilling those yearnings in our heart, the more the relationship or the more that what we want to put our passions into will actually fulfill the yearning that we're feeling. Anxiety will peak right before your success and you're going to feel all this stuff come up in you. But that is why it's so important to learn how to overcome the fear of commitment shadow. Part of overcoming it is to understand exactly what it is, how it works, and where it comes from. Once you have that knowledge, we can then begin to move through it. Welcome to this episode. Hello and welcome. I'm Dan Ballard. Thank you for dropping in. My vision on this podcast is to provide you deep insight in a digestible way so you get condensed practical wisdom and knowledge that you can apply in the real world to help you grow. I'm a personal growth mentor with 12 years of professional results, helping you master your emotions and energy and feel confident so you prosper. Welcome to this episode. I hope you share and enjoy. Hello and welcome to this conversation today. It's going to be all about overcoming the fear of commitment. This is something that's personally actually, affected my life in a very, very deep way for a long period of time. Most of my conflict I've felt is in relationship, but it definitely has affected, many facets of my life. It's actually what got me into teaching this work and to really making myself an example of this work and letting that influence really help people in their own lives. There's going to be a bit of wisdom that I get to help bring through to you to make this concept and a lot of these inner understandings more palatable, more easy for you to digest so that you can use them in your life to grow. I recently just put out a post on Instagram and it just broke down a couple of things around overcoming the fear of commitment. So if you're not follow me there, Instagram's a really good little platform, and also my email. But Instagram's a very good platform to see how I break down all of these concepts into easy to digest messages that will help you grow. Email, we explain things a little bit further. And in the podcast, we get to have a bit of a conversation together about it. So what I want you to understand about the fear of commitment, it largely shows up in our relationships. And why does that show up most in our relationships? Well, first and foremost, we're creatures of emotion and we are social beings. So a lot of our successes in life largely depend on our social skills and ability. And for our species to thrive and also survive, we need to be in good connection with other people. When we're not in connection, it really hurts a lot of things that allow us to connect, to reason with other people, and then also to live a meaningful life and create a life that is fulfilling and feel like we're giving back. We're contributing to the lives of other people. That's really where happiness and wealth really lies, is in our ability to connect and relate with other people very well. Now, this is where we start to understand how the fear of commitment begins to show up. I have experienced a lot of trouble in the past in my relationships. It's also where my deepest wisdom and learnings have come from as an individual. And so much of that had to do with the shadow that lurks and looms, it grips, it controls all of my important decision-making. It influences meaningful relationships in my life. And ultimately, before I worked with it, it was limiting me in my successes, my personal successes in life, my ability to communicate with other people very well, precisely, and feel like I'm actually bringing who I am to the table, which is a very, very important part of how we want to be living our lives. So let me read a bit about what I posted on this Instagram for you to give you more context to what we're going to be talking about today. I wrote that overcoming the fear of commitment. The fear of commitment is a shadow that looms over meaningful relationships, decisions, and ultimately our personal successes long term. And this shadow strikes hardest when we are closest to fulfilling the yearning that's within our hearts. And that's something I want to talk about because it is literally, it gives you the why. Why would we want to understand about this fear of commitment shadow? All of us have ideas in our head of how our life needs to go. We are amazing at creating plans, but the thing about reality is that none of the plans we create, or very rarely do our plans go exactly as we intend them to go, meaning that no plan will ever survive perfect contact with reality. And this teaches us about this understanding that there's only so much we can think about and reason with before we have to just enter into a space of maybe not knowing, trusting, and just literally watching the experience of life meet you and unfold. That's also where the magic of life lies. But for some strange reason, we humans, we need to have that sense of control. We need to have that ability to be safe and things are well organized. And when they're not, a lot of us really experience a lot of suffering. So with that context laid out, this is where the fear of commitment comes into it. A lot of us in the past have had experiences, particularly in relationship, that may have let us down. They might have hurt us. They may have left us with scars. Just as we fall over and we cut ourselves on the outside, sometimes when things fall apart in our lives, they leave wounds on the inside, and they have various effects on our life experience, both in that moment when it happens and also long term. And they leave subtle impressions on our mind field. They affect our emotional body. And that is literally where the shadow of the fear of commitment comes from. This is actually what I've experienced in my life and why I'm comfortable talking about it, and why it's actually so important to talk about it, because I know how powerful it is when you begin to overcome it. I would not be in the position that I'm in right now where my child's about to be birthed. I stepped up and got married, and I feel so free in my relationship that I know that the years ahead of me are actually very exciting. And I think that's really what I want to think about. And really what I want to focus on in life is every day I want to feel like I'm getting up and I'm fulfilled. I'm living the life that's true to me and my heart. And, I can work towards something that's meaningful. And unfortunately, when we have a lot of shadow around the fear of commitment holding us back, we get restricted from this. Let's look to a couple more points. As I said, the greater the resistance, the higher the likelihood is that whatever you feel in fear or resistance against actually meets the yearning of your heart. So talking about what I was talking about with the ideas in our head, we all have ideas in our head of how things need to go, but all of us also have this deep yearning inside our hearts. Whether you're male or female, we all have it. There's a truth. There's something in us that we can connect to. Particularly, it's more about our limbic self. We can connect to that limbic self where our deeper dreams, where our deeper drivers, our sense of our core of who we are, it resides there. And when that aligns to the head, that's when we start to experience a lot more fulfillment, a lot more joy. We can rest in who we are more comfortably. We can express who we are and really dial into the things that we want to be doing to express our passions and hopefully, spend our time wisely, doing the things we love, getting paid doing the things we love. This is all the effects, the after effects that come when you overcome the fear of commitment shadow. So let's start to look at a couple of signs of an active fear of commitment shadow. These are some signs that I realized in my journey before I overcame them. You avoid making future plans with partners. You're self-sabotaging, procrastinating. You avoid emotional intimacy. So there's an inavailability there. You avoid conversations that need to happen. So you avoid the difficult conversations. You tend to have a tendency to jump from partner to partner, whether that's your fault or not. That's what's happening. And then you really get fixated on searching for red flags in other people. And you also, in your life, jump from thing to thing. So there's no consistency in what you're focusing on. You tend to jump from thing to thing without change, results, or outcome. So this can be signs that you have an active fear of commitment shadow, and they can stem from past traumatic experiences, a lack of trust or faith that you hold inside yourself, a fear of rejection, failure, and also abandonment. And there's also a desire for independence. Now, although I'm sharing my experience there, I know for a lot of people, you will relate to that. Getting really personal. Before I met my wife, I was not long out of my relationship and my previous relationship, and the readiness for me was not there. Well, so I thought wasn't there. I really got to learn just how much resistance I was holding on to when an awoken woman called me up to the plate. That's exactly what Katie did for me. And I got to a point where I literally was in my kitchen and she called me out and called me up and said to me, look, I've noticed your energy change towards me. I'm cool with that, but you need to be conscious of what you're doing. And that really checked me, because that was the first step when I realized, shit, okay, I need to be aware of my behavior. What am I choosing in this reality right now? This is where we start to begin to overcome the fear of commitment shadow. So here's me, not in the right time for a relationship, scared, worried. I've got that fear of abandonment. I've got a fear of rejection. And again, another relationship falling apart. But that was the moment where I really got things mirrored back to me, and I had to take stock of it. So in overcoming the fear of commitment, we have to get ourselves to a point, and it's often it's often something we choose. We choose, and we use our volition to choose that. We have to get to a point where we choose to move beyond it. And that was my moment. That was the start of it, was realizing, okay, I'm at a point here where I don't want to let this relationship go because it is really fulfilling my needs. I can see a long-term future in it. It's helping me grow as an individual. And the person on the other end is so loving and pure. Like, I'd be silly if I didn't commit past my edge. We all have an edge, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. All of us have an edge. And then also in our outer world, we have an edge in business. We have an edge with making money. We have an edge with our physical health and performance. There are edges that exist in each facet and domain of our life. And all of them are actually influenced by this commitment. Your level of commitment determines your level of fulfillment. Particularly for men, if you're able to commit to your woman in relationship, then you're truly able to commit to your highest purpose in the world. Our woman and the world, they're intertwined. Our purpose and our relationship, they're intertwined in the world. So our inability to be able to, go to those places and acknowledge that we're in this shadow, and this shadow is taking hold of us, it really holds back and restricts many beautiful things in our life, fulfilling our purpose, earning great money, doing the things you love, a life by design. Let's look again at what else I posted. I wrote here that the good news is that, that we can overcome this fear of commitment. And people who are able to do that and commit to their partner, they're also able to commit to their higher calling, their purpose in life, because they're both intertwined. Now, the first step of overcoming this, there is actually ways you can overcome this step by step, other than just saying, get over it. Get over it. Great advice, but great advice in theory. And, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, I'll just get over it. But for a lot of people, it's a lot more complex and multi-layered than that, because it's so largely unconscious. It sits in the background. It sits underneath in the underworld. And we need to bring an awareness to what's happening so that we can then move beyond it. Otherwise, it creates this subtle pull, this grip. It holds us back in subtle and not so subtle ways, and it can often leave us very confused, as it did with me. So the first step is acknowledging actually what the fear of commitment shadow is, and I'm ready to give that to you today. The fear of commitment is actually your fear of responsibility, and that is linked to meeting your deepest, darkest, and most hurtful pains, and then realizing who you are beyond that, realizing who you could become, how good life could actually be, and how you could actually live a life by your own complete design. And these things of the past no longer hold you back. You disidentify. There's a part of you that you need to let go of so that you can overcome that shadow that you are not committing to move forward into that type of person you want to become. And that gets me thinking about what change truly is. Change is our ability to understand our beliefs and to be able to update them as we grow with life, as we meet life. And it's so important because Change is literally the only constant that is in this reality. If you don't change, then you're actually choosing to stay the same. Everything is in a constant state of change and flux. And largely our well-being as an individual, as a state of being, it is largely influenced by your own ability to be able to update your beliefs, but also to move with this change, to become more adaptable and more malleable with your discovery of who you are, why we're here, of how good life could be for you. And this shadow, it looms in the background and tries to distort your view of how you see yourself through your self-image because of what's happened in the past. It also likes to present false stories in your mind about, where your edge is, where your limitations are. That's why it's so important to overcome it. And that's the message today. There is a message that's super clear, is that knowing that your fear of commitment shadow, it can be overcome. I overcame it, and that's how I stepped up in my life. And there is a systematic way to do this. I'm prepared to give you, if you're a listener and you're seeing value in what I do here, then I'm prepared to give you a free document. And it's just literally a PDF document. It's super simple to understand. All you need to do is just get in contact with me and I'll send that through to you. No strings attached. It's just going to require your email and I can send that to you. And you're going to learn a systematic way of how to overcome the fear of commitment that shows up in your relationships, that shows up in your purpose in life, that shows up at work, in social settings. A lot of people have a lot of social anxiety. They can't commit themselves in social settings and bring who they are to the table because there's a bit of a shadow around that. That's the understanding, is it shows up in many, many areas, and it's actually our fear of responsibility, of taking stock of who we are, is bringing ourselves to the table in a really clear and kind way. And there is a process to overcome that. If you haven't heard of what I'm also doing, speaking of processes, I have just launched my Men's Prosperity Mastermind. This is a very, very powerful process that runs for 3 months. It is a systematic way that provides you a really, really powerful space to understand who you are, the limiting sides of your beliefs, traits, tendencies that might be restricting you in subtle and not so subtle ways. And we're going to get a really deep insight into how this works. Then we're going to move beyond that. So it's going to help you form unshakable confidence, kill your passivity, and it's going to help you to get a deeper level of self-awareness that will help build some personal skills that will be specific to helping you create more prosperity in your life. So if you're interested in that, you also need to get in contact with me. It is live. I can send you a link and give you more information, maybe even start a conversation about it. Guys, thank you for listening. This show grows by getting shared. So if you're finding value in it, please spread the message. You can share it to your socials, share it to a friend who might need the message, or you might see that they might need this message and see value in what I'm talking about. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.